In my past life, ever since the Crown Prince changed his wet nurse, every single beauty treatment and pampering I did on my body began transferring to her.
When I applied the Imperial Bestow Hibiscus Cream,
Dark spots and wrinkles broke out across my face instead. Meanwhile, that wet nurse, who was already in her 40s, saw her skin grow fairer and firmer by the day. Even though I woke up at dawn every single morning to practice, my body only grew heavier and more bloated, while she became more slender and graceful. When the Emperor, Yu, saw what I had become, he sneered in disgust, barking, "As the mother of the nation, you have completely lost your dignity. You look worse than—
you are an absolute disgrace to the royal family."
The wet nurse stood by, wearing a smug, mocking smile.
Furious, I ordered my servants to slap her across the face. But the moment the slaps landed on her face, I was the one who aged rapidly.
My teeth began to fall out, and excruciating pain racked my entire body. Before long, I was completely paralyzed, unable to even leave my bed. The Imperial physicians were utterly powerless to help me. I suffered in agony for 3 agonizing days, before finally being literally tortured to death by the pain. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the very day the wet nurse first entered the palace. There she was, kneeling submissively before me, offering me a plate of milk cakes she had made with her own hands. This time, I didn't reach for them.
I simply cast a freezing glare over her, stood up, and commanded, "Eat them. Eat every single one of them. Do not leave even a single crumb."
The wet nurse, Yunnan, went pale with terror. She began kowtowing frantically, the cake slipping from her hands and rolling across the floor. "Your Grace," she cried. "It was His Highness, the Crown Prince, who ordered this servant to bring these to you." Looking at her sniveling, pathetic act, I felt a wave of pure rage wash over me. In my past life, it was right after eating those milk cakes that I started feeling completely drained of energy. After that, no matter how I cared for my skin or body, all the benefits would immediately transfer to Yunnan. Knowing there was something deeply wrong with those cakes, I shot a glance at the head maid standing beside me. She understood instantly. Snatching the cakes from the floor, she forced them right into Yunyang's mouth.
As I watched her sob and choke them down,
I immediately pulled out the Imperial Hibiscus Cream and smeared it across my face. Yet, the dark spots still silently began to spread across my skin, and in the exact same spot on Niang's face, her skin grew noticeably fairer. I dug my fingernails deep into my palms.
Eve, after starting over, absolutely nothing had changed.
I remembered my past life, when I had applied this hibiscus cream, only to have my face break out in hideous dark spots, with deep, hideous wrinkles crisscrossing my skin when I attended the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. I actually looked so much older than her. But the Empress Dowager's cruel sarcasm back then, along with the Emperor's cold disdain and the servants' ridicule, they left me utterly humiliated. That single banquet made me the laughingstock of the entire palace. I couldn't care less about the consequences anymore.
I grabbed the hibiscus cream and shoved it right onto Yunyang's face, rubbing it in.
Yunyang's mouth was stuffed full of milk cake.
Tears streaming down her face, she could only choke out, "This servant deserves to die. Please, forgive me, Your Highness." Before I could even do anything else, she frantically began smearing the cream all over her own face. I turned to look in the bronze mirror, and absolute terror gripped my heart. Those dark spots, they had actually grown so much larger. Through the reflection, I caught a fleeting, smug smirk on Yu Yang's face as she knelt there. Just then, Yu walked straight in. He took in the chaotic scene, his brow furrowing in disgust. "What a fiery temper you have, Empress." Before I could even utter a word, Junang scrambled on her knees to his feet.
"Your Majesty, please show mercy. This servant was truly only delivering milk cake to Her Highness on the Crown Prince's orders."
"But Her Highness, Her Highness." Yu's face darkened with rage.
"Empress, she is the Crown Prince's wet nurse, personally appointed by me."
"Are you trying to defy me by doing this?" The Crown Prince is only 3 years old. At first, I was completely against changing his wet nurse. But Yu insisted that an eminent monk had divined her destiny, claiming Yunnan was the reincarnation of a holy priest. He claimed her milk would nurture a wise and legendary ruler for our empire. And indeed, after Yunyang arrived, the Crown Prince became so much more well-behaved.
So, I stopped objecting.
Little did I know, within just a few days, things would start going terribly wrong. It started with my face. Every time I applied my usual cream, dark spots would break out. When I switched to the more luxurious hibiscus balm instead, not only did the dark spots get even darker, but my skin became horribly rough and calloused. Meanwhile, the dark spots on Yunyan's face began to fade away, and her skin became incredibly smooth, radiant, and flawless, day after day, without fail. I woke up early to do my exercises. Yet, my body only grew heavier and more bloated. Even my face began to sag with layers of excess fat. But Yunyang, her body grew more slender, graceful, and alluring by the day. In the imperial harem, once a woman begins to lose her youth and age, her entire life and status hang by a thread. Fear gripped my heart, so I secretly summoned the imperial physician to treat me. Every day, I applied Yorong powder and soaked in baths of peach blossoms. But when my maid saw me, she screamed in sheer terror.
That was when I realized my teeth were falling out.
My skin was shriveled, and I looked like a withered corpse.
When He Lan Yu saw me, his disgust was impossible to hide.
He claimed I had completely disgraced him, and he never set foot in Fangyi Palace again. Dragging my frail body, I went to beg him, trying to tell him how suspicious Yu Ningyang was. But he just held another consort, looking down at me with utter contempt. "You are the empress," he sneered. "Yet, you're actually jealous of a mere wet nurse? How are you fit to rule the imperial harem? Get out of my sight." That very day, an imperial decree confined me to my quarters.
Then, Yu Niang came to my palace just to mock me.
Furious, I ordered my servants to slap her across the face. But the moment the slap landed on her face, my own teeth fell out, and I collapsed, paralyzed on the bed.
He Lan Yu
Said my appearance was utterly repulsive. He deposed me in front of everyone, and used it as an excuse to strip my father of his military power. I was thrown into the cold palace, abandoned and forgotten, until I finally died in agonizing pain. But now, I have been reborn. This time, I will uncover the truth, and I will never let history repeat itself.
with He Lan Yu backing her up.
Yunyang managed to escape punishment, but I had my people shadow her, perforting her every move back to me.
Just like in my past life, she started boasting around the palace that she was the chosen holy maidens.
She claimed she had received a divine revelation, and that, in just 1 month, she would regain her youth.
You now, you're an old woman. If you can really become young again,
I'll serve as your maid for 1 whole year.
And I'll give you half a month of my salary. Everyone treated her claims as a complete joke.
But only I knew it was no joke.
That 1 month Yunian spoke of was actually the countdown to my death. As the days passed, she indeed grew younger and more beautiful. And the palace servants began to flatter her, thanks soaring, that she truly was the reincarnation of the Holy Maiden. Meanwhile, my steps grew heavy and weak as I rapidly aged day by day.
No matter how much powder I caked on, I couldn't hide the deep wrinkles on my face. We couldn't care about anything else anymore.
To stop her from stealing everything I worked for, I completely gave up on my beauty routine.
I even thought to myself, what if I made myself ugly?
Would that ugliness transfer to Munyang as well? I rubbed raw chilies all over my face, irritating my skin until it was swollen and red. I also stopped practicing the cocoon art. Soon, my skin began to sag. Every day, I summoned Yunyan to see me, closely studying every detail of her face. But to my despair, she wasn't affected at all. She only continued to look younger and younger. On the contrary, whenever He Lan Yu came to visit, the sheer disgust in his eyes grew impossible to hide. Chili, if you still look like this on the Empress Dowager's birthday, don't even think about coming. I won't have you embarrassing the royal family.
I will have noble consort Yao pay respects in your stead.
A flash of joy gleamed in Yu Zhang's eyes, but she feigned concern and said, "Your Highness, you have been looking so terribly haggard lately. You really must take care of yourself."
when He Lan Yu looked at Yunyang,
A look of utter fascination flashed in his eyes. Pulling her into his arms, he murmured, "The Grand Master said you are the reincarnation of the Saintess.
I was skeptical at first.
But now I see, it is indeed true. You truly possess the secret to eternal youth."
Jinnan nodded bashfully.
But when she looked at me, her eyes filled with smug provocation. He Lan Yu scooped her up in his arms and swept out of Fengyi Palace. I watched them leave, then slowly stood up with a cold expression. In my hand, I tightly clutched the letter my father had sent back to me. He wrote, "Do not fear, my child.
I will pay whatever price it takes. I will make sure my daughter is safe and sound."
Rumors began to spread throughout the palace that the emperor planned to depose me. But I had no time to worry about that. By my calculations, I had less than 10 days left. My body was growing weaker and weaker by the day. I spent all my time lying in bed, unable to do a single thing. But even so, deep wrinkles continued to carve themselves into my face. My once fair, delicate skin turned sallow and rough. My hair had turned completely white, and my posture was now completely hunched over. What terrified me even more were the constant, sharp chest pains. Left with no other choice, I had to summon the imperial physician. The imperial physician shook his head in despair. "Your Majesty, I am powerless to help. Perhaps your Majesty should send for the greatest healers across the land." Surely someone out there can save you. I waved my hand weakly and motioned for him to leave. Deep down, I knew this wasn't a normal illness.
And that was why
No doctor could ever cure me. Soon, ugly rumors began spreading through the palace. They said the empress had contracted a bizarre, cursed disease, and that my family The Chu clan was suffering divine retribution for spilling too much blood. I hid inside my palace day after day, refusing to take even a single step outside.
But came the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet.
I had no choice but to attend, hiding my face behind a heavy veil. I could barely even walk. I had to grip my maid's hand with all my might, dragging myself forward,
terrified that someone would notice how decrepit I'd become.
Seeing my pathetic state, the Empress Dowager scoffed in disgust.
She ordered her attendants to rip off my veil.
I was too weak. My movements too slow.
I couldn't even raise my hands to protect my face in time.
The crowd gasped in sheer horror as my face was exposed. The skin was sagging.
Terrified whispers and sharp gasps echoed through the hall.
There were rumors that the Empress lacked virtue and was cursed by the heavens, the Empress Dowager declared. I did not believe them at first, but looking at you now, it seems they were true. How can such a hideous, cursed woman deserve to rule the imperial harem?
It is time for a new Empress. Your Majesty, I hereby grant my blessing for your marriage to the Holy Maiden.
The Emperor marrying the destined Maiden of Heaven will surely bring 10,000 years of prosperity to our dynasty.
We must celebrate this with the grandest wedding.
I threw myself to the floor, weeping and begging.
Your Majesty, please! I was targeted by black men.
I begged the Empress Dowager to see the truth, under the mocking, sneering glares of the court. I looked up at Ilenu. I pleaded with my eyes, desperate for him to say something, anything to defend me. The Empress's throne did not just belong to me. It was the lifeblood of my entire family and held the balance of the entire imperial court.
How could they strip it away so easily?
But He Yu didn't even look at me.
He held Yunnan tightly in his arms, staring down at her as if she were the most precious treasure in the world, completely ignoring everyone else.
Yunnan peeped over his shoulder at me.
A cruel smirk played on her lips as she mouthed the words,
"You old hag." At that moment, I lost all control. I ripped the gold hairpin from my hair and lunged at her, aiming straight for her face.
"What did you do?"
I screamed.
"How did you steal my life? Why are you getting younger and younger, while I wither away into a rotting corpse?"
Yunnan looked up, her eyes instantly filling with helpless, innocent tears. But in the very next second, she flashed a malicious smile and whispered in a voice only the two of us could hear, "Your Majesty, be careful. If you hurt my face, it will leave a scar on yours." I stumbled back in sheer terror,
But she only smirked, even more triumphantly.
in the blink of an eye. She burst into tears and threw herself into Yu's arm. "The Empress has gone mad," they screamed as they rushed forward and pinned me down.
The Empress Dowager clutched her forehead and shrieked,
Such a vicious, wicked woman.
"Depose her! Strip her of her title this instant!"
Yu kicked me viciously right in the chest. "You venomous woman!
How dare you try to hurt my Sanctus!"
I coughed up a mouthful of blood and pointed at Yunnan, screaming hoarsely.
"Yu!
I only became like this after she entered the palace. Have you never once thought that someone might be framing me?
黑蓝驴好人眼派里也是二的。
She is the Saintess. How could she possibly harm you?" Scuggling against his chest, Yunnan sobbed. "Your Majesty, Her Majesty is suffering from a terrible illness,
Which naturally affects her mind.
It is only natural that she wants someone to take it out on. Your servant does not mind." Hearing this, Yu grit his teeth. "Truly, you truly have become utterly vulgar and consumed by jealousy. Look at yourself. Do you have even a shred of an empress left in you?
I will depose you."
My face turned deathly pale. They always say the imperial family is ruthless, and it seems they are right.
Once, Yu begged to marry me with a grand wedding that stretched for miles.
After I entered the palace, he spent 10,000 pieces of gold to build this fungi palace for me. Now, staring at his disgust-filled face, I said calmly, "Yu, my Shen family pacified the empire for your Lian family and guarded the borders. We have been loyal ministers for 3 generations. Yet you depose your empress for a woman of unknown origin. Have you ever considered how the world will look at you?" Killing intent flickered in Yu's eyes, but he stood there, completely still. As an emperor, he knew how to weigh the pros and cons. But Yan suddenly pushed him away, sobbing, "Since your Majesty cannot tolerate me, then I might as well die." With that, she lunged headfirst toward a stone pillar. I panicked, desperately wanting to stop her, but it was already too late. Yunea wailed as she slammed her head violently against the stone pillar. A sudden, searing pain flashed through my head. Blood gushed from Yunyang's forehead like a fountain, yet she stared at me with a twisted, sinister smile. A cold shiver ran down my spine. In my past life, it was right after Yunyang got hurt that my aging process began to accelerate. Sure enough, one of the palace servants pointed at me and shrieked in horror. Before their very eyes, my skin began to shrivel and wither away. My eyes sank deep into their sockets, and my teeth all rotted and fell out. I looked absolutely hideous, like a monster. Hailing, Yu recoiled in utter disgust and terror,
screaming at the top of his lungs. From this day forth,
Chu Lai, he's no longer the empress of our great Ye empire.
guards! Drag this wretched, cursed creature away and throw her into the cold palace.
Yunian gained over, whispering triumphantly in my ear. Let me tell you one more thing.
The emperor is already preparing for my coronation ceremony. And the day I am crowned empress will be the exact day you die.
Soon, I realized my legs couldn't move at all. I was becoming paralyzed. In utter despair, I glared at Yun Ang's beautiful, mocking face.
Her white robes brushed past my eyes as she walked away.
Suddenly, a realization flashed through my mind. Inside the cold palace, a figure dressed in black silently landed and helped me up. Your Highness,
The item you asked for has been found. 3 days later,
With a perfectly calm face, I had the servants carry me to Yun Yang's coronation ceremony.
I watched silently as Helian Yu held Shumang's hand, leading her step by step up the high altar.
suddenly, she stumbled.
Hey, you quickly grabbed her to steady her.
But the moment his eyes met her face, his expression turned to sheer horror.
He let go of her instantly.
And stumbled backward in fright. I had a tum.
Watching his reaction, a cold, faint smile crept onto my lips. Suddenly, he whipped around to face me.
He glared at me with pure venom and roared, Chu Lai Yu!
What did you do to Yun Yang? Yunil stood there, completely baffled,
As she slowly turned her face toward me, the moment I saw the hideous black spots spreading across her skin,
I laughed silently. That poison actually worked.
Seeing that I didn't answer, and only smiled more mockingly,
Hailing Yu knit his brows in fury and snarled, Chu Lai Yu, your Nang is so pure and kind-hearted.
we dragged you out of the cold palace just to let you witness this ceremony. Instead of being grateful, you actually tried to harm her.
guards, drag her down and give her 50 heavy blows.
Hearing this, my heart sank. Helian Yu knows full well how weak my body is and how tortured I already am by this illness.
50 blows.
He wants me dead.
I lay quietly on the daybed, saying nothing. Just as the guard stepped forward to drag me down,
I finally barked in a cold voice.
Stop. I am the daughter of the great protector general.
Who dares?
Everyone in the world knows my grandfather was a founding hero of the Dayu Empire.
who served 3 generations of emperors. My father is the great protector general.
For 20 years, my Chu family army has guarded the borders, risking their lives on the edge of a blade. They shed their blood countless times to drive back foreign invaders for Helian Yu.
They hold immense prestige among the common people. Touching me is the same as crossing the Chu family army, the very protectors of this empire.
For a moment, nobody dared to step forward.
Yun Yang still had no idea what was happening to her face. She was so eager to take her place as empress
That she pretended to be generous and advised, Your Majesty, the ceremony is not yet complete. Do not let some worthless trash make us miss the auspicious hour to ascend our thrones.
Accepting the adoration of tens of thousands is what we should focus on.
But my attitude completely infuriated Helian Yu. I knew very well that the Chu family army was a sharp blade in his hands, but also his worst nightmare.
He both respected and feared my father.
Respecting him for helping him unite the empire,
yet fearing him because he held the military command token.
And might harbor treasonous thoughts of rebellion.
And now, I had completely lit the fuse in his heart.
A raging fire erupted in Helian Yu's eyes. So you are the daughter of the great protector general.
Is that why you dare to look down on me?
Who gave you the nerve? Slap her face. 20 slaps were ordered. The guard didn't hesitate, delivering a vicious slap right to my face.
But I didn't feel any pain.
Instead, I felt my legs, which were completely paralyzed just moments ago, actually start to regain sensation.
I sneered inwardly.
Staring intently at Yun Yang, we stood on the palace steps. With each slap I received, the black spots on her face spread even more.
By the 10th slap,
She finally realized something was terribly wrong. She saw black spots breaking out on her own hands.
And at the same time, a clump of hair fell from her shoulder.
Yun Yang, pale with horror.
she snatched a bronze mirror from a nearby maid to look at herself.
And when she saw her face completely covered in black spots,
Her shriek echoed through the entire hall.
seeing her end up in this state, the palace servants all shrank back in fear.
Someone whispered, "Wait, isn't she the Holy Maiden?"
What on earth is happening?
Why is she suffering from divine wrath, just like the former empress?
Seeing Helian Yu stumble back in horror upon seeing her face,
Yunaga pointed at me, sobbing and screaming.
Stop hitting me!
It's this wretched bitch.
this bitch cursed me.
Every time you strike her face, it ends up reflected on my own body. The Empress Dowager looked at Yunang's face, her expression turning dark and unreadable.
Yun threw herself at her feet, crying, Your Majesty, you have to help me.
I am the Holy Maiden, personally chosen by you and the Emperor. The Empress Dowager glared at me and said sharply, Emperor,
This wicked woman has surely used dark sorcery.
we cannot allow her to live.
Her words played right into Helian Yu's hands.
He barked curtly,
Guards, Chu Di has used forbidding sorcery and harmed the heaven-chosen holy maiden. Drag her away and have her drawn and quartered. The Imperial guards rushed forward and grabbed me, dragging me down with brute force.
Just as they were about to drag me away,
Palace guard rushed in, sweating and panicked. Your Majesty, terrible news. A secret report just arrived. The true family army. 200,000 troops have already reached the city gates. What? Himeyu gasped, his face turning pale with sheer terror. Ignoring Yunyang's desperate pleas, he shoved her violently aside and rushed out. Yunao collapsed to the floor, glaring at me with venomous hatred. In the end, the grand coronation ceremony was completely ruined. News of my father's army of 200,000 stationing outside the city threw the entire palace into sheer panic. No one gave a damn about the coronation anymore. Seething with rage, Yunang barged into the cold palace, pointing her finger at me and shrieking, "Why? Why are you still alive? He clearly said we'd only take 1 month. Just 1 month, and you would be dead. Today was supposed to be the day you die." I sat leisurely on the daybed, applying some hibiscus cream to my face, and casually asked, "Oh, who said that?" Realizing she had let the secret slip, Yunyang gasped and quickly slapped her hand over her mouth. Only then did she notice what I was applying to my face. Her eyes widened in absolute horror.
What are you doing? She asked, her voice trembling.
I cast a sly, chilling look at her. What else could I be doing? Pampering myself, of course. The nanny beside me immediately stepped forward and slapped her hard across the face, barking, "How dare you, you worthless wench! How dare you offend her ladyship!" Yunang instantly went hysterical. You're the worthless wench. I am the holy maiden, personally ordained by the emperor. I am the empress. I let out a cold sneer. I grabbed her hair in one swift move, shoving her face right in front of the bronze mirror. Take a good look at yourself. Do you honestly think He Lai Yu will still believe you're the holy maiden? In the mirror, Yunyang's face was covered in hideous dark spots, her eyes dull and lifeless, and her complexion completely withered. She looked several years older than when she first entered the palace. Lungyang didn't dare to look any longer. She shielded her face, screaming hysterically. I spoke coldly, exposing her true identity. A country bumpkin from some backwater village like you actually dares to dream of becoming the empress? Who gave you the audacity? Yunang stopped screaming. She stared blankly at me, her face turning deathly pale. She had no idea that back when I first reincarnated, I had already sent my secret guards to uncover her true identity. I originally thought she was the mastermind behind everything, but who would have thought she was just an ignorant village girl? I also sent men to search for the high monk He Lai Yu had mentioned, only for the temple abbot to inform me that no such person ever existed. Speak. Who sent you here?
Yunyang 给和李跑
Still stubbornly protesting. You're the one who got cursed. Why are you blaming me? I let out a soft chuckle, picking up a nearby dagger and lightly pricking a tiny hole on my index finger. Instantly, 2 teeth popped right out of Yunang's mouth. Ah, she shrieked in excruciating pain, lunging at me. Don't do it! Stop! I am the empress. How dare you harm the mother of the nation? I have all executed before she could even touch my shoes. She was kicked aside by Lian Yu, who had just walked in. He asked in a deep, heavy voice, "Who said you are the empress?" Yunyang looked up at him in sheer disbelief. "Your Majesty, the grand coronation ceremony has already been held. You have already proclaimed it to the entire world. An emperor's word is law. You can't go back on your word. My proclamation to the world was to crown the holy maiden as the empress." He looked down at Yunang with utter disgust. Look at yourself now. Do you look anything like a holy maiden? I had no patience to listen to their bickering, so I simply asked coldly, "What brings your Majesty to the cold palace in person?" He Lai Yu looked at me. He says in a soft voice, "Yeah, I've already ordered the servants to take you back to Fangyu Palace." Seeing him still here, I only find it laughable. For you to take a deposed empress like me back to Fangyu Palace. Aren't you afraid of breaking the palace rules? He Lai Yu's face tuckers. I know you're just acting out of spite, but now I've come to fetch you in person. So please, let your anger go, all right? Seeing me remain silent, he pleads earnestly again. We've been husband and wife since our youth. Didn't you say that no matter what mistake I made, as long as I bowed my head, you would forgive me? Looking at his face, which seems so full of sincerity, I only feel disgusted. I haven't forgotten that at my coronation ceremony, you wanted to have me torn apart by 5 horses just for the sake of the saintess. Suddenly, my shadow guard quietly steps up to me. He doesn't even spare He Lai Yu a glance. It simply bows to me with lowered hands. Your Highness, Master Jingwei has arrived. Entering along with the master is my mother. The moment she steps into the cold palace, she bursts into tears and pulls me into her arms. My child, you've suffered so much. Mother has brought the master here for you. Quick, let him take a good look at you. Mother is a devout Buddhist. Before I entered the palace, she had specially gone to the temple to burn incense and pray for me. She also asked a master to read my fortune. The master said that after entering the palace, I would surely face a great calamity. Mother gave me a string of prayer beads, telling me to keep them on me at all times to ward it off. The string of beads was kept in a pure, spotless, white box. At the time, the general's mansion was overflowing with rare treasures sent by Lan Yu, so I didn't think much of this string of beads. After Mother gave them to me, I carelessly tossed them into the depths of a drawer. I didn't bring them with me into the palace. It wasn't until I was on the verge of death and caught sight of the white hem of Yunyang's robe that it suddenly hit me. I immediately sent my shadow guard back to the general's mansion to find them. Once I put on that string of beads, I indeed stopped aging. I was even slowly recovering my youth. But unfortunately, as time went by, those prayer beads gradually turned black and lost their luster. I knew they wouldn't last much longer, which is why I asked Mother to invite Master Jinghui, the one who gave them to me. The master looked grave. He looked back and forth between me and Yunyang. Finally, he spoke. Her Highness has been afflicted with the curse of life and death. My mother's face went deathly pale with fear. Master, is there any way to break it?
He Lai Niu quickly added, I will do whatever it takes, no matter the cost, to break this curse for you.
The master gave him a cool look before saying in a deep voice, the so-called life-death curse
Means one must die for the other to live.
If you live, they die. Within 1 month, one of them must use their own karma to take on the other's entire pregnancy.
Once the pregnancy is fully transferred, the other person will vanish.
And the remaining person will be reborn, completely renewed.
Upon hearing this, He Lan Yu unsheathed a guard's sword and lunged straight at Yunyang. You worthless bitch! I knew it was you. You used dark magic to harm Ye, just to secure the Empress's throne.
Only your death can save Ye.
I'm going to kill you.
Yunyang's face turned as pale as ash with terror. She scrambled desperately to hide behind me. The master stopped Lan Yu. Please, calm down and let me finish. Yunyang is not the one bound to Her Highness by this curse. She is merely a vessel. Her life or death will not affect Her Highness in any way.
What? My mother cried out in shock. Then who is the one who cursed my daughter?
The master pressed his palms together. I am deeply ashamed to admit this. The life-death curse is a forbidden art from our texts. The book was locked away in the temple by my late master. But after my master passed away, my junior sister took advantage of the chaos and stole it. I have been searching for her all these years. I never expected her to hide inside the imperial palace. The caster of this curse cannot be too far from the victim. If I am not mistaken, she is still somewhere within these palace walls.
My mother panicked. But there are so many people in this palace. How on earth are we going to find her?
I stared at the bead in my hand, sensing that things were taking a turn for the worse. Apart from the royal family and the concubines of the inner court, there are countless maids and eunuchs.
All the officials? There are over 10,000 people in total.
If we have to search them, one by one, I'm afraid the bead in my hand won't hold out until we find her. The master turned his gaze to Yunyang and said in a grave voice, since you are the vessel, you must have seen the person who cast the curse.
Tell us. Who is it? Yunyang saw everyone's eyes lock onto her.
And her face instantly turned deathly pale. The cold tip of the sword was pressed right against her throat. Speak! But Yunyang could only stammer, unable to make a sound. And he plunged his sword straight into her shoulder blade.
I'll talk. It's
the Empress Dowager. He Lan Yu's face twisted in shock. Impossible. He thrust the sword even deeper. You are lying.
How could the esteemed Empress Dowager possibly know curse magic? How would I dare lie to your majesty?
It really was her. The Empress Dowager stood right in front of me and cast the curse on me. I was originally just an ordinary villager from Zhang village, living off of just a few acres of land. That day, I was working out in the fields when someone suddenly knocked me unconscious. By the time I woke up, I was already inside this palace, and the Empress Dowager was sitting right there in front of me. She asked me if I wanted to become the Empress. I didn't dare to say yes. She just smiled and told me that as long as I did exactly what she said, I would be able to become the Empress. How did she cast the curse on you? She performed a ritual and drew some of my blood, dripping it onto a lock of hair. Then she burned it. She said that from then on, I was the Holy Maiden, and that I would regain my youth and stay young forever.
He Lai Yu stumbled back in utter disbelief. No, this is impossible.
The Empress Dowager has stayed in the Deep Palace for decades and has never once stepped outside.
Let alone joining any sect or training under a master.
How could she possibly be the Grand Master's junior sister? Master Jinwei did not look surprised at all. He pointed at me and said, I must ask the benefactor to make the arrangements. Whether it is true or not, I will know the truth with just a single look. Seeing He Lai Yu remain silent, I mocked him. What is the matter, Your Majesty? Didn't you just say you would do whatever it takes to break this curse for me?
Did you forget your promise after only a few moments? He Yu snapped out of his shock.
And only then remembered his purpose for coming here. He looked at me, pleading softly. I will do whatever you asked of me.
But could you please make a trip outside the city?
To meet with General Chu.
And ask him to withdraw his troops?
Having 200,000 troops stationed outside the city gates is highly improper, with no soldiers left to guard the borders. I fear our enemies might seize the chance to invade. I looked at him and sneered. If it weren't for my father's army of 200,000, I would have been drawn and quartered and thrown into a mass grave long ago. How could I ever see him groveling like this? I casually patted my legs, which I could already move freely, and flatly replied, I cannot. After all, I am currently paralyzed in bed, unable to move freely. If my father were to see me in this pathetic state, he would surely fly into a blind rage, and I cannot guarantee what desperate measures he might take.
Your Majesty had better help me break this life-death curse as soon as possible.
Only then can I go meet my father in good health and persuade him to withdraw his troops.
He Yu's face turned dark.
But he was in no position to order me around anymore. I will arrange it immediately. Once he left, Yunyang threw herself to the ground, banging her forehead repeatedly against the floor.
Your Highness, save my life, I beg of you. I was a victim in this too.
I didn't even bother to spare her a glance. I merely glanced at the shadow guard hidden in the dark, who understood instantly and dragged her away. I later heard that He Yu found her increasingly decrepit appearance repulsive. He had her beheaded for the crime of treason and threw her body into the mass grave.
One day, a flower viewing banquet was held in the palace. I was carried there by the palace servants.
The Empress Dowager kept staring at me, sizing me up. Seeing that I still looked decrepit and half dead, she sneered. Xu Liu, you've kept claiming that someone cursed you, but now that the woman is dead, why haven't you improved at all? Clearly, this is divine retribution for your family's endless sins. And now, your father even dares to station troops outside the city gates, attempting a rebellion?
Your Majesty, I believe she should be drawn and quartered right now, and thrown right in front of General Chu to show him the wrath of heaven.
Before this, I was consumed by the fear of having my youth stolen by Yunyo, so I never paid close attention to the Empress Dowager. But looking at her now, I noticed her ruby lips, pearly teeth, and flawless skin. She didn't look like a 40-year-old woman at all, but rather like a young lady in the prime of her youth. I couldn't help but sneer in my heart. It seems she, too, reaped quite a few benefits from that curse. Seeing that He Yu remained silent, the Empress Dowager's face darkened. Your Majesty, Chu Li is no longer the Empress.
She is nothing but a traitor's daughter. How could you bring her here?
Let her openly crash my flower viewing banquet? I smiled mockingly and spoke up. Who said this banquet was held for you? The Emperor personally told me that this flower viewing banquet was his way of apologizing to me.
Isn't that right, Your Majesty?
He Yu gently
Nodded. Seeing this, the Empress Dowager was so furious she was practically seething with rage.
Suddenly, her eyes darted around. She deliberately shattered a teacup, using a sharp shard to slice a bloody gash across her palm.
Instantly, my brow furrowed in pain.
Suddenly, I clutched my chest and violently spat out a mouthful of blood.
Seeing me spit blood, she wore a triumphant smirk.
She then picked up the shard again and sliced another deep cut into her arm.
Unable to withstand the pain, I blacked out.
The nanny beside me shrieked,
Her Highness! Her Highness has fainted! Quickly, call the imperial physicians.
A group hurriedly carried me away, but moments later,
a eunuch came stumbling forward in a panic. He fell to his knees in front of He Yu, crying, Your Majesty, this is terrible!
Her Highness, the Empress, she has passed away. What?
He Yu leaped to his feet in disbelief. His face turned deathly pale. How?
I clearly killed the witch. But the Empress Dowager burst into a hysterical laugh.
She's dead! She is finally dead. All my painstaking efforts weren't in vain.
She deserved to die.
Where is her corpse? Flay her skin, tear out her bones, and send them straight to that old geezer of a father of hers.
I want to watch him weep in absolute agony and crawl on his knees in miserable repentance.
He Yu stared at her, utterly shocked.
Mother,
You have no grudge against General Chu. Why would you harm her? The Empress Dowager laughed maniacally. Who says I have no grudge against him?
he murdered my husband!
So he deserves to feel the excruciating pain of losing his own daughter. The surrounding servants exchanged nervous glances, too terrified to even breathe. Wasn't the Empress Dowager's husband the late emperor?
But the late emperor and General Chu were like brothers.
How could General Chu have possibly harmed him?
Besides, didn't the late emperor clearly die of an illness? While everyone was left utterly baffled,
The nanny, who had been standing by my side just moments ago, stepped forward.
She spoke calmly. So, this is what lay deep in your heart.
Nanny? Junior sister Jinyu. Upon hearing that voice,
The body of the nanny, standing beside the Empress Dowager, suddenly stiffened.
she spun around, desperate to flee, but two secret guards lunged forward instantly, pinning her to the ground.
Master Qingfei, who had been disguised as my personal nanny, walked over to her.
She raised her hand and struck Jinyu right between her brows.
The frantic Empress Dowager immediately collapsed unconscious.
It's a puppet curse!
金庸，来凡里来防肉。You used your dark arts to harm the innocent.
Violating our master's teachings.
Now, on behalf of our master, I officially expel you from our sect.
Qing Yuan sneered maliciously and arrogantly.
So what? Chu Lei is already dead anyway. My great vengeance is finally complete.
Who said I was dead?
Flanked by palace servants, I stepped out, my true appearance fully restored. Jinyu stares in absolute disbelief,
Her eyes wide with shock. I chuckled. The life-death curse on me was broken long ago.
We only put on this act to lure you out of hiding.
Suddenly driven mad, Jinyu shrieked like a lunatic.
Go to hell.
Just die.
He Lan Yu immediately barked a harsh order to have her dragged away and brutally tortured. Later, I heard the gossiping palace maids whispering
That after Jiyoung fled our sect, she married a general of the enemy kingdom.
That general had died at my father's hands.
to seek revenge. She spent years plotting to infiltrate the palace, just to murder me. In the end, Jin Yun was executed by 1,000 cuts.
Once the dust had settled, He Ainu restored my position as the Empress. One day, holding me close as he always did, he murmured, "To have a wife like you."
What more could a husband ever ask for?
I merely smiled, handing him the cup of ginseng tea in my hands.
And watched him drink it all down.
A year later, He Ainu fell gravely ill and died.
My son, who had just turned 4 years old, ascended the throne as the new emperor.
From then on, I ruled from behind the curtain as regent.
Dedicated to grooming him into a wise and noble ruler.